Hello, I'm glad to be here with you to share some of the essential principles about doing business in China, especially the part about Chinese business etiquette.
Well, I think that there are two huge facts about the modern world that apply to China in a very powerful way. One is globalization, and the other is change. China is handling both globalization and change together at a fantastic speed and scale. And I think it's very, people from outside have always to remember that in the last 15 or 20 years, China has achieved what Western Europe took 150 years to achieve, and America probably 50 years to achieve. And I think that these are two things you have to remember all the time, that you're not dealing with a superficial culture, you're dealing with a very deep civilization that is now adapting in an extraordinary way to the modern integrated world. While you have to remember all the time you're dealing with people who are very proud of a very ancient and powerful civilization, they still are recognizing that there are things about the modern world that they don't understand. And it depends a lot on the generation you're dealing with, how they cope with that. I think the most important way for somebody doing business with China to remember that is not so much in particular details, but all the time to have at the back of your mind that you are dealing with a people who, for maybe 1,000 years, were the richest culture and country in the world.
I think we really need to start with 关系. 关系, that's a Chinese word, which means relationship building. You need it because without 关系, you hardly can move a step over there in that land. Everything, a lot of them, not everything, but a lot of them really depends on how well you can build up that relationship. So I really advise everybody who really wants to have a try or who is now doing any business in China to pay special attention to build a very positive, very constructive relationship. 关系, what does that mean in English?
They translate in English as connections.
Connections, yeah, 关系.
But perhaps the modern word is network.
Network, connections, and relation. No, I think it's connections.
Connections.
Yeah, connections, yeah.
And this has always been important in all old societies, and it's very important in America. In America, you have all sorts of organizations that promote 关系. You belong to the same Rotary Club, or you went to the same university, or you were a member of one of these fraternities.
Yeah.
These are all 关系 organizations in China. And in China, they're particularly important nowadays because of what we referred to last time, the pace of change. You just don't know who you can trust or rely on.
Mianzi means face. It's not the physical face you see here, but mianzi actually means a lot in the English vocabulary, like dignity, one's value, the respect you pay to each other, and also the sensitivity you need to exercise over the everyday dealings, everyday kind of interaction with each other.
Cultural aspect that are very, very important. Face is one you mentioned, that's quite right. That they are very proud. And that's what face is, it's pride. And if you want to succeed, you must make sure that you conduct yourself in a way that never makes the Chinese feel embarrassed about themselves.
Okay.
And also because they are a very ancient culture, they are very skillful at playing that card.
They do.
And that's one thing that you need to remember, that Chinese have built into themselves a skill at negotiating that no sort of US or UK business course comes close to approaching.
talking about patience, Chinese people are never short of it. In China, since it is a very large country, and also with this long history, people are trained to be耐心, to be patient. So do not rush things. Take your time. And most of the Chinese people, they don't really rush into any real relationship with anybody. They really need time to build up trust, to build up faith with each other. And once the faith is there, the trust is there, business will come much easier.
You do need, I mean, anybody who is not yet dealing with China, it's better get a move on and start. But in the actual detail of negotiating, when you're negotiating a particular deal or a particular project, then you must expect to be patient and not to be deceived by any initial response, whether it's good or bad, but just to keep on at it.
So patience.
Patience is very, very important, yeah.
Okay. These are the things, and apart from this faith and patience, what other things we think we really need to generally be prepared for while we do business here in China?
Right. I think that what is confusing often to Westerners is Chinese people hate to say no.
The avoidance of no confrontations.
Yeah. They would much rather just gently massage the situation away, saying we will look at this in 3 months' time.
Have you ever been confused about this? Yes, on the surface, but no, in reality.
Oh yes, several times. Right.
So do not take anything said at the surface level, but really try to understand what is really implied behind the words.
Yes.
Wow, this is really a challenge here.
And I think it goes beyond the written word, or the spoken word, it goes into the written word too. The terms of any contract, you can find on the one hand that the Chinese are brilliant at playing the contract both ways, that they will ask you to stick literally to the terms of what is favorable to them, but are masters at finding ways of getting around the bits that are awkward for them.
All right, so I think that explains why you say one has to be skillful and learn the ways Chinese people, how they can be so skillful in handling negotiations and handling the ways they get the right deal for themselves.
And I think what Western businessmen, of course, they should know that the Chinese know that most Westerners are absolutely dazzled by the possibility of the market of 1,000 million people.
It's true. That's one of the attractions
yes, exactly. And that they are, the Chinese know, therefore, that they almost always are controlling the negotiations. Because whether it's Westerners who are trying to buy things from China, because they know that the Westerners can't buy it cheaper anywhere else.
Or they know that very well.
They know that
play
very
the
well.
card very well.
They play the card very well. And if you're thinking of setting up a joint venture in China, they know equally well that the Westerners are desperate to be able to set up a joint venture in China. And so they know, the Chinese know, that all the time they effectively have the strongest cards.
Now, let us come back to the very last point I wanted to mention in this session. That is hierarchy. Wow, that is 等级. Hierarchy, I think in a country with a very small power distance like the American society, yes, we do have some hierarchy there too, but it doesn't play a crucial role in our life every day. However, in China, everything you do, everything you say, you really need to bear in mind there are differences in our status there. There are differences in this hierarchical structure. Good luck with your try in China and good luck with your effort in doing business in China. So this is the end of this session. Bye-bye. For this particular series, we are going to concentrate on making initial contact over there. There are a few things I need to remind us here before you go into the land. I think before you make any initial contact, first of all, you really need to try and get some information about the industry or even about any particular company you have in mind for your potential negotiation. Where can you get the reliable kind of information, I think you should try, first of all, your country chambers, business chambers.
I think you can't be thorough enough in doing your homework about China and what you're trying to do in China to get it, to spend maybe a year doing your homework on China, to find out what your competitors are doing, what the Chinese are doing, what the Chinese ambitions are, what are the Chinese regulations, all that. It's worth spending time really doing your homework on that. And then when you're in a position to approach China, then you've got to have a very, very comprehensive file on what you do. Because you can be sure that if it's at all serious, then the Chinese trade offices in America will be running background checks on you. So have everything up front. And of course, what the Chinese want to see is that you have proved yourself to be what they would call a reliable business partner. Don't be shy, though, if you're a newish company. They expect that because a lot of companies in China are new, but they want to see that you have a proven track record of both success in some sort of technical sense,
It's true.
and commercial success, and that you have a good reputation.
Another thing I think we really need to remember as part of our preparation for your China trip is to try and dig out any relationship or any guanxi contacts you have in China. Even though it may not be a direct contact you have, just think if you can ask around, if somebody knows somebody over there in China and happens to be in that industry, that will help you to start much more easily in your venture there.
I think in Chinese community, the people knowing each other is very important. A lot of time that you have to find somebody to know somebody in order to get to the right person, in order to get in contact.
Find somebody who knows somebody and somehow have an introduction, either by phone or maybe, I don't know, by mail, but probably by phone, or the best would be, in person, to be introduced by somebody to somebody.
So if you do not have anybody you know readily in your circle, what can we do?
Right,
Yeah.
networking. And Chinese had a term called guanxi. The guanxi is really
talked about
to
that.
interaction with people. You know somebody. The initial contact, I would recommend that you know somebody and you meet them outside in a small gathering in many different forms, and you can know each other and exchange some ideas, and then you get into further, or you know somebody else and then go into a further deep in business
Right.
discussion. building the
Guanxi, I love that. Guanxi building, that's really the focus for the initial contact.
The Chinese people would like to get to know you and like you before they decide whether they really want to do business with you. Because I think that's important to them, that that there is this mutual liking. Whereas in the West, I'm wondering, if liking or not liking is almost besides the point.
I think the Chinese is also emphasize on the trust.
The
You have to
trusting,
trust
yeah.
each other. They have to first assess and trust you
Yes.
till they can go on to the
Very
further.
much so.
Don't forget, it's about your proposal, the business proposal. Don't just pick up the phone and call. Most of the time, you won't get a real answer by this direct communication over the phone. However, in China, people really take notice of the written proposal. So come up with a very decent, very elaborate and detailed business proposal and send it before you go there. The next thing I think we really need to take care of is the team you form, the delegate you form to send to China. Who should lead a delegate and who should be the members of the delegates? Again, there is a lot of the cultural issue here. Please make sure you send somebody who is senior in position and also not too young in age. Again, remember in the last session we talked about the hierarchy, we talked about 面子, because in the Chinese tradition, the older you get, the more respect you get. So make sure you find someone senior and also senior in age too to get into your delegate and lead that delegate to China. Remember to choose some people who are good at social life, and who are good at being sensitive towards differences among people, and who have a lot of patience.
A Chinese person who you know has personal guanxi with the people you want to meet, that is ideal. But that's not always easy to get straight off. Following on from having done all this homework, if you like, to make sure that you are going in at the right level, it's very important that you, the visiting organization, also go in at the right level. The Chinese are expecting to deal with senior people on a serious project.
So what would happen if you send somebody rather junior or just a mid-level management team instead of having someone higher up in the ladder?
You would start on the wrong foot. You might be able to recover, but the odds are that you'll be shuffled off.